Welcome to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. Each week, we bring you insight, analysis, interviews, and our predictions for the week's matchups around the Northwest Georgia area. Here are your hosts.
All right, welcome to our viewers. It is our first This Week in Northwest Georgia High School Football Pick Show for 2024. We are pumped to be here and glad you're with us on our Facebook page or YouTube channel. We appreciate you.
No doubt about it, and it's hard to believe that it's that time of year. It is time for the high school football season. Of course, Ian, Grayson, everybody has been working so hard throughout the summer, and they played a lot of scrimmage games and things of that nature lately, a lot of activity leading up to what we get this week. And ready or not, it's time to go. It's time to lock horns against other teams in the games that count. The regular season of football is here. And the first thing I want to do is I want to go around and introduce everybody as a part of our panel here for this year's edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. I'm Matt Davis of WLAQ Sports alongside Ian Griffin, who's with V3, but also does a lot of things with WLAQ Sports, including a lot of our high school football and sports coverage for that aspect. And we're excited to have you back, man. And along with us today for the first time here on this program, we have got a model high school senior this year, and joining us on the program is going to be none other than Grayson Atkins, who is an intern for WLAQ this year and also doing some things for V3 as an intern as well. Glad to have you with us, man. Thanks for joining us.
It's very nice to have me here. It's so far been exciting, interning and writing a lot of these previews. It's just been a great amount of experience leading up to football and even going into some of the other spring sports, fall sports, and even some of those getting back into the summer sports, just covering how teams are doing in the summer.
Very excited to have you, and again, welcome to the program. Well, we've got a lot of things to cover over the course of this show today, Ian. So how do we even possibly get started with this?
Well, the bottom line is we've got a great lineup of games here in the first week. You've got the Corky Kell Classic taking place, but the trend in high school football now, really over the last decade, I'd say, is that non-region matchups are tough, and they are exciting, and we have a lot to talk about when it comes to this week's matchup. So we're diving right in with both feet.
We are. And so with that said, let's just go ahead and run down the list of games that we're talking about this week. We're going to start with Unity Lions and Young Americans Christian Eagles. A little later, it'll be the Model Blue Devils and the Sonoraville Phoenix. Also on the list for today, the Darlington Tigers hosting the Mount Vernon Mustangs. The Pepperell Dragons are going to be facing the Pickens Dragons up there at Pickens. That's a road game. Tryon's going to be hosting Gordon Lee. A lot of interesting stuff to talk about with that particular matchup. The Calhoun Yellow Jackets at Creekview against the Grizzlies. Adairsville will play Allatoona Buccaneers. Then you've got Cass going up against Callaway Cavaliers, another big matchup there. In the first week, we were going to talk about the Rome Wolves and the Creekside Seminoles, and we'll get to why we won't be discussing that particular matchup in a couple of moments. But one of the things we're going to do on the show this year, Ian, and you had a lot to do with lining this up and kind of forcing the issue with me to make some different things happen with the show, which I greatly appreciate. But tell us about a new feature that you came up with here for the show.
Yeah, so, it'll be hard to decide some weeks, I'm sure, but we're going to choose a game of the week each and every week. And when we choose that game, we are going to have those head coaches of the two respective teams call in and give us their thoughts on the matchup, which we're excited to do. We feel like that is the best source you could possibly give the viewers of this show when it comes to breaking down a big game. And we're jumping right into a huge rivalry game with the Cedartown Bulldogs traveling to play the Rockmart Yellow Jackets in week one, and Coach Biff Parson of the Yellow Jackets and Jamie Abrams of the Cedartown Bulldogs were good enough to give us their time this week. And Matt was good enough to put in the extra work to make it all happen.
Well, and I got to tell you, great conversations that we were able to have with both of those guys. And we kind of put them on the spot a little bit.
We did.
And they didn't hesitate, which is kind of what you expect from football coaches. But that's the first time I've had the opportunity to talk to either one of them and just really thoroughly enjoyed the conversations. I know the audience is really going to get a kick out of that coming up in just a little bit. It's a good segment.
Yeah, it is. So excited to share their thoughts with our viewers.
All right. Well, the next order of business here that we're going to talk about is something that I know nobody wants to be talking about at this point in time. But obviously there was something that could have turned out a lot worse that happened last week after the Rome and Rockmart scrimmage that took place, and we're certainly thankful that we're not talking about a different story. But with that said, it was the difficult thing that the Rome High football team and community had to deal with, and we just wanted to, let Coach Reed and the players, the rest of the coaches, the community know that we're thinking about them through a really difficult time. And we got a press release from Rome City Schools earlier this week, and I'm just going to read it here. We don't have a lot of details about the situation, but we're going to give you what we have directly from the school, and this is official. But the Rome High School football's team will not be able to play in the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classic game scheduled to be played on Friday, August the 16th. The school is taking this precautionary measure to ensure the safety of the football players who were involved in the bus crash on Thursday evening. We obviously want to play the game if possible. This is a quote from Coach John Reed, but after the players were evaluated by physicians, we realized that it was not in their best interest to suit up and play on Friday. We hope everyone understands this measure, but the safety of our student athletes comes first, Rome High football coach John Reed said. We want to thank the organizers of the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classic for understanding, and we want to thank the community for all the prayers and support you have offered us after the incident on Thursday. And one of the buses carrying the Rome High players and coaches was involved in an accident returning to Rome after Thursday's scrimmage against Rockmart. Rome's next scheduled football game is an away game at Carrollton on Friday, August the 30th. And I know, Ian, you're an alum of Rome High, a very fortunate situation that the injuries and things of that nature weren't any more severe than they were, but this is still, again, just a very serious situation, and we do send out our thoughts and prayers to that community. I can't imagine what it's been like wading through the aftermath of this and dealing with it and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, all the excitement building up to opening the season, and anybody that is involved with this Rome program knows what a big deal the Corky Kell has been. I mean, when it first came to Rome and games were played in Barron Stadium, that was a big get and just a showcase of what kind of program Rome had become. And I promise you this much, they want to play this game on Friday and would be playing this game if it wasn't imperative for them to cancel. So, it's going to be tough for them now to go without playing for a few weeks and have such a big game at Carrollton. So I'm sure they wanted to get out there and do it, but you've got to do what's in the best interest of the kids and those families, and getting on the other side of this incident is important. So definitely thinking about everybody involved with the Rome program. Sorry there's not going to be a game on Friday, but some things are more important.
Indeed, and I could not have said that better myself. So thank you for helping us tackle that difficult subject. And we're going to go ahead, I suppose, now and take a break, and then we're going to do what a lot of coaches say. We're going to keep the main thing the main thing. And today, that's predicting some games and talking about some matchups and getting ready for the regular season. This is the first edition of 2024 of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We're glad you're with us. We're glad to be here, and we will be back after these messages here on the WLAQ YouTube channel. We appreciate our sponsor for making it possible for us to be here. We'll return.
Riverside Auto Group is celebrating 50 years in Rome and Northwest Georgia. Join the celebration and shop for your next car, truck, or SUV from Riverside Auto Group. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
Welcome back to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Are y'all ready to pick some games? Are we going to do this?
Well, I will say on my behalf, the way that things went with the picks last year, no. Ian got me again, and so we'll see what happens. But, whenever we look at these first games early in the season, and I guess you kind of end up in a little bit of that situation when you get to the end of the year and you see matchups in the playoffs that you don't normally see. There's some tough games to pick in here, out of here for week one.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are a lot that could go either way, and there's a lot of unknowns. Period. I mean, you've got kids that were lost to graduation. You've got teams we don't know that much about coming in from outside the region. So we do our best to do our research and make educated guesses. But I'm excited to get into this one. Maybe I can three-peat if Grayson doesn't come in here and mess up the whole thing.
Well, there's already been a little smack talk. I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but he thinks he can take us both. He has told me this past week.
All right,
so
all right.
It's on. It's on.
And we'll give him some chopsticks, see if he can catch a housefly.
Well, let's see. Let's go ahead and start picking some games. The first one that we're going to go with is going to be the Unity Lions up against the Young Americans Christian Eagles. We should also mention we had an opportunity to talk to Coach David Humphreys in a preview show, and he told us that they have moved to 9-man football instead of 8-man football. A little bit different there. They still play in the Georgia Association of Parochial and Private Schools. That's a mouthful.
It is.
But now playing 9-man football. Last season was very successful, wasn't it?
Yeah. Brought it all home with the state championship after falling short 2 years ago. They avenged that loss and brought home the ultimate prize.
Indeed, they did. So, Ian, you want to take this first pick?
Absolutely. Coming off that state championship you just mentioned, and they return a lot of experience. You know, it was a slow start for Unity last year, but once they got to region play, they found their identity and really started clicking and scored points in bunches. So when you talk about this team, you've got experience up front on the line. You got some big nasties up there. With the move to 9-man football, doesn't add another lineman. It adds another skill player, which means, according to Coach Humphreys, even more points. So you're going to see this Unity Lions team get up and down the field. Evan Whiteside's the guy you've got to talk about at quarterback. Accounted for over 50 touchdowns last year. The Young Americans got them early last year. It's revenge time. The Lions roar and win in week 1.
Yeah, I'm looking at this similarly as you, Ian. The Lions, as you mentioned, 6 contributors on defense come back, 5 on offense. Doesn't sound like a lot necessarily, but when you consider the size of a 9-man football roster, it's a lot. Yeah. And so having all that experience come back, and then not to mention experience with success, I think the Lions are going to get off to a faster start than you saw last year. They were 0-3 to start the season. This year, I think they really come out swinging, and it's going to be exciting, a very exciting brand of football. At the end of the day, the leadership, start with Coach Hump through the rest of his coaching staff is solid, and these kids are in good hands. So I'm going to go with Unity Lions to win that first game. And now we're going to turn the mic over across the table here to Mr. Grayson Atkins, who's, again, doing an internship with us here at the radio station and also at V3. Grayson, how do you see this one, young man?
Well, not only do I see this season for Unity being a little bit different just in terms of, 9-man football, this is also a bigger team that they've had in the past few years. And Coach Humphreys, he's very happy about that. So not only do they have, a lot of depth, they also have a lot of experience. You talked about Evan Whiteside accounting for over 50 touchdowns, and they also return a decent amount on that line, Davis Blankenship and Elliott Whiteside. And honestly, I just think that's what this game will come down to. They have a lot of depth. They have enough talent even to go back-to-back. So in my opinion, I see Unity winning this game and getting their get-back on Young Americans Christian Academy.
Awesome. So we all see that one the same. So no matter what happens through this first game, everybody's going to be tied at first place at this point. Yeah. So we're going to move on. Yeah, that's right. And we'll see about this next one. It's the Model Blue Devils and the Sonoraville Phoenix, Ian.
Yeah. So, after advancing to the second round of the state playoffs last year, Model will turn to a group of underclassmen to try to sustain the success that Coach Honeycutt has developed in Shannon. They're starting out with a familiar opponent. It seems like Model and Sonoraville play just about every year, and Model's gotten the best of them more often than not. There's new quarterbacks starting for both teams here, and you've got the Phoenix replacing a guy in Jackson Pate who did just about everything. So those are key pieces to watch. Model is going to feed the ball to Gage McQuarter. Last year he was averaging around 5 to 10 carries. I think his workload will double, if not triple, and they're going to lean on that running game. The Phoenix have numbers, but they're just as green, and this game's in Shannon. It's hard to call, but I'm going to go with the road team. I'm taking the Phoenix to get the win.
So he says that the Phoenix will rise. Well, I see it the same. Well, let's find out. Little series history here. Sonoraville leads 10-6. Model has lost the last 5 in the series. Denver Pate has not lost to the Blue Devils since taking the helm of the Phoenix back in 2017 with wins over Gordon Powers, then next Ricky Ross and Jeff Honeycutt. So could that change in this particular situation here? Last season, Model went 7-4, second round finish. Sonoraville 3-7, missed the playoffs. However, they were playing in Class 4A, so obviously looking at the numbers game there, should have some more depth, you would suspect, here for this Sonoraville team. Scrimmage-wise, Model defeated Almerchi 20-6 in a preseason scrimmage last week. Won the week before over Lafayette. Takeaways from that, Model graduated a big senior class. You pointed that out. Coach Honeycutt's going to be relying on a lot of young players to step up, play big roles, and they've got a tough opponent here in this particular game. While I really don't know that much about Sonoraville from a personnel standpoint, there's no doubt they'll come in well coached. Denver Pate does a great job. They'll be prepared for the contest. However, I am going to go in the opposite direction here. I'm going to take the Model Blue Devils. They're in front of the home crowd for this one. I think one of the things you'll see is these early games in particular, and you could say this about any game, but turnovers, mistakes, penalties, those sorts of things. Sometimes the team that makes the least mistakes is going to be the one that comes out on top. I think something's going to happen in this game where Model's going to be opportunistic on defense, take advantage of a turnover, something like that, and they will, on defense, grind this game out and come out with a win. So we have a difference there, and we will flip over to the other side of the table. And nice shirt you got there, man. I kind of wondering which way you're going to be leaning on this one.
Well,
Grayson Atkins, what's your pick?
I thought y'all two were going to have me backed up against the wall for just a second. I thought you were going to pick Sonoraville. Sonoraville, they have a decent amount of size up front. I know a decent amount of their guys up at Sonoraville. They got a few skill guys at receiver. Of course, Elijah Woods coming for his senior campaign. Kamen Reynolds, Eastern Carolina commit. And you mentioned these two are really familiar with each other. Model actually got the best of them last year in a scrimmage, 17-14. So, but other than that, Sonoraville's won the last 4 of the 5 matchups in either scrimmages or regular season games. Right now, you mentioned the QB battle. Model's still trying to figure out, who they're going to go to. You have Jared Terhune, the first-year quarterback. He's a senior this year, coming in from baseball. Brantley Patch, he played a little bit of quarterback last year. There's a decent amount of battle between them going on between scrimmages. They've gotten a decent amount of snaps either way against Almerchi and Lafayette. And talking to a lot of guys at Model, you see my shirt, Big Blue Basketball Camp, knowing a lot of those football guys, they're confident in themselves. And for me, it's really easy to believe them. It's really easy to trust them. So, unsurprisingly, I'm going Model here.
There you go.
I'm on an island here.
So 2 for Model, and then Ian took Sonoraville in that one. And we'll move on to the next game. And I should just mention to people tuning into this show for the first time, we call the Darlington football games on WLAQ and have for a number of years. And we just have it as a sort of a general rule of thumb that if we're, broadcasting a game, we'll talk about it, but we're not going to pick that game. But we are going to talk about the Darlington Tigers as they get ready to host a tough opponent in Mount Vernon Mustangs. And Ian, you and I have seen a lot of Darlington football in recent years. We've gotten to know Coach Groves pretty well over the last couple of years. I went to high school with the guy, and I know you knew him as a kid. Yeah. So we always enjoy talking about the Darlington Tigers and that sort of thing and getting ready for the coverage. So let's dive in and talk about the Tigers. This should be a pretty big test, I would assume, coming out of the gate.
Yeah. As you said, we recuse ourselves when it comes to picking this game, but let's talk about it a little bit. And I'm going to be excited. I'm out of town. I have to miss this ball game, but you two will be in the booth. Grayson will be holding my seat down, and I appreciate that. And I think y'all are going to be in for a good matchup here. Mount Vernon's coming off a really strong season. They defeated Pepperell in the first round of the playoffs. They replaced their quarterback, but all-state running back Walker Warshaw is back, and this guy is a handful, and I know Coach Groves is focusing on how they slow him down, and they've got some dudes to do it. But first, let's talk about the offense. The Tigers are bringing a spread option offense to the table this year, led by Sammy Konchesky and a guy named Miles Twyman, who'll be at that B-back spot, eating up carries. They're going to try to control the ball. They're going to try to play good ball protection, not make the mistakes, make the other team beat them, and they're going to need to do that to succeed here. Another name you want to watch in this game, Henry Ledbetter. He's going to be anchoring that defensive line, and they're going to need to stay strong and shut this running game down to have a chance to win. But I think the Tigers will come out prepared to play, as they always do under Coach Groves.
There's no question about it. It's going to be really interesting to see because obviously you mentioned a lot of the names that are familiar. But to talk about the elephant in the room, obviously you won't have the explosive playmaking of Demarion Floyd any longer, Talon Shirey, a lot of guys that graduated, which every team has to deal with every single year to varying degree. But you really do have a solid core of guys that are coming back here for this Darlington football team and a new look offense, which is super exciting to see. And it's also an opportunity when you do have a little bit of roster turnover like that for some guys that we haven't had the opportunity to call their names a lot. One of the guys that pops off the top of my head, who I know is going to be an excellent football player, I think it's in his blood, is going to be Bodie Powers. Okay. We called his name as a freshman last year. I think we're going to hear his name a bit more this year and some other guys as well, but that's just one that jumps off top of mind to me. So we'll see what happens here in this first game, but I do think it's, and any coach I think would tell you this, to have some tough matchups early in the season can be a good thing to kind of find where you are, a good measuring stick, that sort of thing, and I think this is going to be just that. Really looking forward to the game. Not super familiar with the Mustangs, as I've not seen them play, but I believe they've graduated some key guys, as you pointed out, from last year's squad, and will be in a situation like a lot of teams are in terms of figuring some things out earlier in the season. And again, you can't hammer this enough, particularly this part of the year, limiting turnovers, limiting penalties, trying to play as mistake-free football as you possibly can is going to go a long way any time of the season, but particularly early on, you see a lot of those things take place. And that's one of the things we'll be looking at in this matchup is which team can make the least mistakes. Yeah. All right. With that said, we're not picking this one, but we're talking a little bit about it. So let's get some perspective from Grayson Atkins. And what do you think about this matchup? Give us a couple of points here about the game.
Yeah, I'm not going to point out who I think is going to win this game, but I did find a few things interesting. I'm surprised I didn't know this earlier. Their head coach, Terrence Edwards, the University of Georgia's all-time leader in receiving yards. All I gotta say is go Dogs with that one. They're a senior-ridden team, and according to Matt Stewart, they are ranked inside the top 10 of private schools from 1A to 3A. So that'll be interesting, not only in terms of how they could perform, in terms of how that playoff bracket could fill out. Of course, we know it's a new format. And last year, of course, they beat Pepperell. They came off a region championship, Sweet 16 appearance. However, one thing I noticed, their region only had 4 teams in it. And it's really a basketball region. They have Mount Pisgah in that region. They had Kingsbridge Christian. They won the state championship basketball 2 years ago. So it's really kind of one of those basketball regions. But yeah, Mount Vernon, they're a very interesting squad. I'm looking forward to calling that game, and I'm looking forward to see how both teams head off against each other.
Good analysis, man. Thank you very much for that. And I do want to mention, Grayson just a moment ago referenced the differences from Class A to 3A in particular for the playoffs coming up this year. One of the things I do like about that situation, without diving in too much, is that you do preserve some of those matchups between the private and the public schools. However, once you get into the playoff situation at the end of the year, you're going to have public and private split off in those classifications, and there's a power rating system and all that sort of thing. And we don't have a whole lot of time to dive into all the particulars about that. But the Georgia High School Football Daily broke it down in their edition. We were recording this on a Monday, so it would have been the Monday edition of this week. And I certainly would encourage everybody to read that because it gives you some information about that to have as we go into the season. We will break that down as we go along throughout the rest of the year on this particular show. But that's a major difference here this year. I've never seen anything like it. And I know there are a lot of different opinions about it, but regardless of that, it is what it is, and everybody's dealing with the same thing. So that's going to be one of the fascinating things to watch as we go throughout the year. It is, and the Tigers are certainly affected by that, but going to be a heck of a game at Chris Hunter Stadium on Friday night. Indeed, it will be. Let's move on to the next game. This is the last one we're going to pick before we take our next break, and this one is going to be the Pepperell Dragons going up to play the Pickens Dragons. There are 3 schools in the state of Georgia that are the Dragons. You got 2 of them playing each other here, and Pepperell has a brand new head coach. He's got a new philosophy. He's got a ton of energy. We had the opportunity to sit down with him for a preview. Really enjoyed talking to Coach Brandon Haywood. That was a fun conversation. It seems like a fantastic dude. I think he's going to have a lot of success with Pepperell, Ian. Yeah, absolutely. And this battle of the Dragons, they took a hiatus last year. They played for several years to open the season, but didn't play last year. Pickens struggled last year to a 3-7 finish, while Pepperell kind of overcame a tough non-region start to end up making the playoff field. You mentioned it. Rick Hurst is gone. Brandon Haywood takes over in Lindale after a 2-year stint.
coaching the Woodland Wildcats. He had some talent there, but he just played in a buzzsaw of a region. It doesn't get any tougher than the schedule that they were going up against, and now he moves to this Highway 27 slaughterhouse that they'll get to deal with this year. But what I like for Coach Haywood, other than his energy, which is high level, as you mentioned, is that he's got a ton of experience coming back, and that starts at the quarterback position. You got Sam Ross back. You got Tyler Rogers back at running back. That is a formidable backfield, and the numbers are good in Lindale. 73 guys on the roster. There's some depth. We haven't seen that in a while from a Pepperell Dragons team, and I like this team. I know they're having to go on the road, but leadership at the most important positions you need it all year long, but in the first game of the season, when there's jitters and mistakes, I think that is going to be the difference in this game. I like Sam Ross to have a really good ball game and Pepperell to win.
I'm not going to leave any suspense here. I agree with you on this one. Pepperell leads the series 10-1-1. The last meeting of the series was a 34-20 Pepperell win at home. One of the things, you pointed out with some of the experienced players, we recognize a lot of those names when we were talking with Coach Haywood, and they got a newcomer as well, which we're very familiar with because he came over from Darlington, but Sam Wooten, who is a linebacker and a tight end. I mean, that kid is a phenomenal football player. He's going to be a great addition to this particular team. And, I know in the scrimmage last week against Coosa, which was a pretty tight game, he made some big plays in that game that I saw on the internet. And so they got a lot of playmakers on this team. No doubt this team's going to be playing with a lot of enthusiasm and energy. They're going to be a well-coached team. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do this year. Craig Bennett is the new head coach for Pickens. His last stop was at Cambridge, where he was head coach for 12 seasons, went 65-62, won region title, 5 trips to the state playoffs. He brings a lot of wisdom and experience to the table as well. So I think this is going to be an interesting game. I don't know a whole lot about their personnel, but again, I agree with you, Ian, on this one. I'm going to go with the Dragons. All right, we're going to move right back around to Grayson. And Grayson, how do you see this one?
Which Dragons did you pick again?
That's a good point. He's paying attention.
Yes.
That was a test, and you passed. No, I'm going with the Pepperell Dragons.
Yeah, Pepperell, they're, of course, coming off a tie in the varsity portion against Coosa and, elephant in the room, Battle of the Dragons. According to Cal Preps, Pickens minus 18.5 on the spread. I kind of found that interesting. However, despite, that scrimmage game against Coosa, first-year head coach, battle of first-year head coaches, honestly, I'll see Pepperell winning this one. They have major seniority. We mentioned a few names, Sam Ross. They have a few other guys at receiver, a few other guys on defensive end. Steven Sepp will headline that defensive and offensive line. And I just think that Pepperell, they've already played 2 scrimmages already. Of course, they had their scrimmage canceled against North Murray, so they had an inter-squad scrimmage, and they played against Coosa last Friday. And according to a lot of things I've seen on Twitter, this will be Pickens' first game regardless of scrimmages. So I think Pepperell will have their number there up in Pickens.
All right. So there we go. That is our first round of picks. Anything else you want to say?
None of
before we
us
go to the break?
Pickens picking.
No, we didn't pick the Pickens. Yeah. We're going to take a break, and we're glad you're with us. We still have several games to pick, and then we also have our game of the week that we're going to talk about. And we've got interviews that we're going to play from the game of the week, which is going to be the Rockmart Yellow Jackets and the Cedartown Bulldogs. And really looking forward to listening to those conversations in a little bit.
Yes.
So you want to stick around for that. Don't go anywhere. But right now, we really appreciate our sponsor, Riverside Auto Group, for making this show possible. Let's hear a word from them. We'll return.
Riverside Auto Group is celebrating 50 years in Rome and Northwest Georgia. Join the celebration and shop for your next car, truck, or SUV from Riverside Auto Group. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
Welcome back to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We have picked 4 games, and we've got a few more to pick, including our game of the week between Cedartown and Rockmart. But we're going to jump into a matchup that is way older than everyone at this table. Matt, give us the details on this epic rivalry.
Always love talking about this particular matchup because this game is thought of, and I believe because it is, the longest continually running rivalry matchup in football in the state of Georgia. This thing goes back 90 years. Tryon leads at 66, 22-1. There were only a couple of seasons when you look back at the Georgia High School Football Historian site where you see that there weren't games. And I don't know all the details about that, but I certainly know what was going on in history during that particular time, World War II. So I would imagine it had something to do with that. But nonetheless, they've been playing this matchup with the exception of those couple of years during World War II since 1933. And I've never been to this matchup before. That's on my bucket list of games to go to around Northwest Georgia. I sure would love to have the opportunity to go see what the atmosphere is like at one of these games. And even though the series history is pretty lopsided, those are proud communities, and I'd just love to see what it's like to be at one of these games. It's cool.
I tell you what, we got up close and personal with the Tryon fan base last year. We sat there and watched them play Pepperell before the matchup with Darlington to end the season, and you're not kidding. They are right on top of the action, and they are in the ears and minds of the opposing team. So, this is it'd be exciting. We should go up and catch one at Gordon Lee. I'd like to see what their home atmosphere is like
for this game in particular. Yeah. We'll look at the elephant in the room here. Obviously, you don't have the running ability of Toby Maddox here with this Tryon squad any longer. You're going to miss him, no question about it. But Ian, Cade Smith's back, quarterback, senior quarterback, tons of experience. Logan Stokes, remember that name, watching them play, great playmaker. Fans may have to manage expectations a little bit this year compared to what they did last year, going 11-1, making it the second round, lost a heartbreaker to Elbert County, had an unbelievable season when their first, region championship in a long time, had been a couple of decades. But at the same time, this football team is in good shape. They're going to be a good team this year. And as you pointed out in your opening talk about this game's getting played at Tryon, and that makes a big difference here for this game. Gordon Lee's got to deal with the Tryon roster, but they got to deal with the fans as well at Sam R. McCain. I think there's only one way to see this particular game, man. I'm going to go with the Tryon Bulldogs. How about you, man?
Yeah, I'm not going to lead you on here and make this unnecessarily suspenseful. Tryon's going to win this game. You're replacing a ton of production from Toby Maddox, but you have a 4-year starter at quarterback in Cade Smith. He didn't have to chuck the ball all over the yard because of Maddox, and we'll see how that production is at the running back position going forward, but he's got targets, and he can throw the football, and I think they will lean on his arm a little bit more. He can do damage with his legs as well. They're stout on the offensive and defensive line. Sean Patrick has this program in position to get back to the mountaintop. Now, they've got to deal with Bowden this year in their region, and that's going to be a challenge. That is a heck of a program coming off 2 straight state championships. But I expect Tryon to be in the mix, and I don't expect Gordon Lee to hang for very long with this Bulldogs team.
Well, let's find out if this pick is going to be unanimous. We go over to Grayson Atkins. What you think, man?
Before I say my pick, you mentioned that Tryon played Bowden. Not only do they have to play Bowden, they got to play Manchester. If you're unfamiliar with Manchester, they're a pretty successful football program. They have a 5-star defensive lineman in Justice Terry that is right now projected to go to the University of Georgia. So go Dogs with that one.
Oh, man.
He's taking every chance he can to throw in these Go Dogs.
And I will say, just for context here, even though I am wearing a red and black shirt, I'm not sure how that happened today. It was just what was clean. Both Ian and I are big Georgia Tech fans. He's a Florida fan, so he's got it double. So all the Go Dogs is going to be coming from the other side of the table this season for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Definitely a few times whenever we do this. But yeah, according to Cal Preps, the spread is -24.5 going towards Tryon. In my opinion, there's a reason why the spread is that much. Give me Tryon.
Okay, so we all see that one the same, and that's the pick. So we're going to move on to the next game. Tell us a little bit about this next matchup here, Ian, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in shocking fashion, the Calhoun Yellow Jackets did not make the playoffs last year. That is a testament to the region that they played in, where they had to play the likes of Cartersville and Dalton and Hiram and Cass. Somehow, Calhoun wasn't in the postseason, and I would be willing to bet had they made it, they'd have won a couple of games. But that's the way it works in high school football, and I guarantee you that this Yellow Jackets team is hungry to get back there. They're going up against a Creekview team that is solid, but last year they went to Calhoun. They lost that game 28-14. I think the home field advantage will help Creekview, but I really think we're going to see a Calhoun team on a mission to get back to the playoffs. I'm taking Calhoun.
Yeah, you know what, man? I have to say, there's times where you look down at your picks when you're getting ready to pick, and we pick these blind, so we come in, we have the games picked. We can't change the picks. But this one, I'm like, what was I thinking with this particular pick? But we do have a difference here. I went with Creekview, and I honestly, I don't remember exactly why I went in that direction. And it wasn't because I looked at the fact that Calhoun missed the playoffs first time since 1999. It is all because of the region that they were playing in. They were an excellent football team last year. Creekview went 7-4. You know, they lost fairly close to Blessing Trinity in the first round of the 6A playoffs. One of the things that we certainly want to talk about when we talk about this Calhoun team this year is dropping down a couple of classifications and what that does for this particular team. They're going to be in a region with the Daresville, very good football program. You've got Ridgeland, Northwest Whitfield, Gilmer, Heritage, and Lafayette. And while there's some good programs there, that is not even close to what they were dealing with in the past. So I think the expectations for Calhoun immediately go back to region championship mode here in this particular region. I feel comfortable saying that would be the expectation here, even at this part of the season.
And I don't think that changed even when they were in the region with, I mean, you know, that's just the mentality that you have with a program that is as successful as Calhoun has been. I mean, say that one more time. When was the last time they missed the playoffs?
1999, if I looked at that correctly. And I know some fans are going to look at that and going to think the sky is falling. No, I don't think this program's dropped off. I just think that the classification that they were in, that region in particular, is like the SEC of high school football in the state of Georgia.
Brutal.
It was on every single week of the season. There was no weeks off. And that was really tough. And you look back at some of those games and how close they were. That could have gone a different way really quickly. So the sky's certainly not falling by any stretch of the imagination in Calhoun for the Yellow Jackets. I'm an idiot. Nothing against Creekview, but normally I'm going to pick Calhoun in that game, and I don't remember why I decided not to. But I have to stick with what I wrote down, so I'll do it. And I'm going to take Creekview playing at home. That may be what I was thinking. But anyway, there we go. We're going to go ahead over here to Grayson, and I'm pretty sure he probably sees this one differently than I do.
You might be a little bit correct there. I can't lie. Yeah, that 5A region, that was certainly tough. There was a few shockers in that region. I didn't think Cass was going to beat Calhoun, but we saw how that went. They ended up getting the 4 seed right in front of Woodland, and Dalton. They were a big surprise in that region as well. And Hiram, I know I was talking to Coach Haywood. He was actually the pick to win that region that year. But that certainly was a buzzsaw of a region. Of course, they played last year. You mentioned 28-14. I wouldn't say a rough season for Calhoun, but that certainly was a different look for that Calhoun faithful in terms of that Calhoun standard that they have over there. They won their scrimmages against Kennesaw Mountain High School and Allatoona, and they will run into a Creekview that came close to beating them last year, as we mentioned. However, I believe Calhoun, they're on a mission this year. They're coming back for it all. They're showing people the Calhoun standard. They got a ridiculous amount of guys. They have Cam Penny at receiver, and, of course, the big tight end, Amari Winston, that Texas commit. I may be a Georgia fan, but I'm not going to say horns down here. So, yeah, I see this starting with a win at Creekview.
All right. So there you have it. I'm out on a limb on that one. We're going to run through these next two kind of quickly because, man, we're burning through the time here on this particular show, and we've still got a lot to come here on the program. Remember to stay tuned because we've got those interviews with Coach Biff Parson from Rockmart and also Coach Jamie Abrams from Cedartown as we get ready for what we call the game of the week coming up this weekend, big rivalry game that's going to be taking place over at Rockmart. So a lot of information on that one coming up a little bit later on in the show. But Ian, our next matchup on the list is the Adairsville Tigers and the Allatoona Buccaneers. And I got to admit, this one kind of gave me a little bit of stress picking this game.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I do, but I don't know. I've had some good conversations with Coach John Cudd, and he's confident in his Tigers. They're replacing a lot on the line of scrimmage, so a lot will depend on how quickly those units gel. Allatoona coming off of a 2-8 campaign, but they were young, and now they've got some experience coming back that should yield improvements. But I feel like Allatoona struggles against some pretty bad football teams last year. That stands out to me, and I feel like Adairsville has the experience at the skill positions to carry them to a Week 1 win. So I'm taking Adairsville.
This one, when I looked at it, I had a hard time, and I think a lot of that has to do with the reputation that Allatoona built, for a long time with this program, which has been around since 2008, as being a fierce opponent by being a playoff team every year from 2010 to 2022. Won a state title in 2015 and made several other deep runs in the playoffs, and I can't get that out of my head. Last season, they won 2 games. So I maybe should have put a little bit more stock into that situation. But will that prove to be a blip on the radar? With a program like this,
Right.
Maybe so. There's definitely some talent in that area. So we'll see what happens. I don't have a feeling about this matchup one way or another. I'm going to take the Buccaneers, and the only reason I'm going to do that, I think the difference in the size of the schools, that maybe there's going to be a little bit more depth here with the Buccaneers team and an early season game like that. And there might be a few mistakes here or there.
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, that's nothing against Adairsville. I can see this one going either way. But for some reason, and it's probably because I looked at all that past history, my eyes got kind of big at that Allatoona. But
Another difference.
But yeah, again, I can see that one going either way. How do you see this one, Grayson?
I don't see this one going either way. I see Adairsville winning this one. This will be the first all-time meeting between both teams. And Adairsville, we saw in that scrimmage, they tied against the 2-time defending state champs and bound in the varsity portion. And then they played Cartersville the next week, which I don't think that game went very well. But it was a great experience for Adairsville playing a team like Cartersville, who, they make Elite Eights, Final Fours year in, year out, even without, big old Trevor Lawrence. They still got talent each year. They reload. That's the motto of that program. Adairsville, thinking of Calhoun, because much like Calhoun, they're going to be on a mission this year to prove everybody wrong, because we know Adairsville, they haven't been able to get past that second round threshold for the past few years. I see Adairsville winning this one, aiming to reach their full potential, and it starts with Allatoona.
All righty. So I'm out on a limb again. We're starting to see a theme here with the picks. And one of the things that we've certainly learned in years past is these early games, boy, they're really tough. Matter. You want to get off to a good start. So I'm either going to be looking good or I'm going to be in the toilet right out of the gate this year. We'll see what happens. But we're going to move on, pick one more game before we take our next break. And boy, oh boy, this one could have been the game of the week this week,
It
too.
could, yeah. It was certainly in contention.
Yep. Cass Colonels are going to be playing the Callaway Cavaliers. And, man, Cass has really been coming on. Have had a few really, really good seasons the last few years of making the playoffs. Callaway has been a perennial powerhouse in the state of Georgia. So a lot to talk about with this particular matchup.
So to jump into this and what Grayson was saying, he didn't see Cass beating Calhoun. Neither did I. And last year, you were coming back on me in the picks because I kept picking Cass against Hiram and a couple of those matchups because Cass was playing great. But then they lost a few heartbreakers. Dalton beat them like a drum, which wasn't expected. And then here they are having to go up against Calhoun. And I was like, they're just out of gas. No, they weren't. And that is a testament to the program that Coach Gates has built at Cass. So when you think about Sokovie White and Devin and Kevin Henderson being gone, you're like, oh, well, Cass is going to have to rebuild. No, they're reloading. They have got some dudes. That starts with Brody McWhorter. He's committed to West Virginia. He's playing quarterback. And then you talk about Auburn commit Kyle Ellis, anchoring the defensive line. He still has dudes. And Coach Gates is going to go on the road and beat Callaway. Or they're at home. He's going to win at home.
I got you. First meeting, Cass went 7-6, made it to the quarterfinals after playoff wins over Kell and Mays. Coach Gates has this program solid ground, make the playoffs 3 years in a row. The Colonels have never made the playoffs in consecutive seasons before this current run. This team is playing good football, and it's looking like, sometimes you have teams where they'll have a good year here or there, but there's a difference between having a good year and having a really solid program, and Coach Gates has built a program, and it's great to see that. Callaway hasn't missed the playoffs since 2005. They won a state title in 2020, multiple deep runs in the playoffs during that stretch. This is a very good football program. Yep. They're not going to be intimidated by a bigger school and environment and those sorts of things in this game. But I'm with you on this one. When you look at one of the things that sets Cass apart this year, it's going to be solid on the offensive and defensive line. And how many times do you hear people talk about, oh, this game's going to be won or lost in the trenches? Well, I think this could be one of those situations. Yeah, Scobie White's now at Georgia. You're missing some playmakers in this type of situation, but the Colonels still have a good amount of talent at the skill positions as well to have some speed to get the job done. I think they're going to have another really, really solid season. So I'm with you on this one. I'm going to take Cass, but certainly not taking any shots at Callaway. They're going to put up a fight in this game. You can believe that. All right, let's get Grayson's take on this one.
Yeah, you mentioned Scobie White's now at Georgia for the third time this show.
Oh, I teed it up for him this time.
I'm going to need a barf bag to keep under the table here to get through this season.
You know what I'm about to say, right?
Just go ahead.
Just spit it out.
Just go ahead and do it.
I'm not going to do it. Y'all know what I'm
Even the implied ones can, produce that similar result, huh?
Yeah, he caught a touchdown that spring game. I was pretty excited about that. Callaway, they're a contender year in, year out in 2A. In fact, they've made it past the Elite Eight every single year since 2017, which that's a hallmark of their program. They're always going to make those deep runs. And with the tragedy that happened to Rome, of course, they backed out. So now they're at the 7:30 slate on Friday. Cass, according to Matt Stewart, I quoted him earlier. I don't remember which matchup it was, but he has Cass ranked number 2 in 4A, which is a surprise to many because you have teams like North Oconee in there, Cartersville. I think Coffee moved back up, so they're not in 4A, but there are plenty of other teams in that class, and they actually played Coffee last year. They went on to win the state championship, and, of course, they played Cartersville, and number 2 is their highest rank ever. I think that Cass, they're going to get it done. Much like Calhoun-Adairsville, they want to get past, even though Elite Eight, that's a pretty more than solid season. They want to make it to that state championship. They want to be like the Calhoun. They want to be like the Cedartown, the Rockmarts. They want to be those perennial powerhouses in Georgia we see year in and year out. And I think this year, this is one of their biggest opportunities to do it. And I see them starting off their state championship run.
Oh, wow. Making some bold predictions here right out of the chute. Wow.
I see them starting off with a win against Callaway.
Nice. I love it. All right. Well, there we go, folks. That's pretty much all the games we're going to pick with the exception of one, and that is our game of the week.
Excited about this, and when we come back, we're going to talk to the coaches of the Cedartown Bulldogs and Rockmart Yellow Jackets.
Riverside Auto Group is celebrating 50 years in Rome and Northwest Georgia. Join the celebration and shop for your next car, truck, or SUV from Riverside Auto Group. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
Welcome back in, everybody, to this episode, the inaugural edition of this year of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football on WLAQ. We're glad to have you with us. And we got a new feature that we're going to be implementing throughout the season this year, and that is going to be to highlight a game of the week on the program and catch up with the head coaches involved in that particular game. And Ian, this week we got a really special game that we're going to talk about right out of the gate here in the first week of the season.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's excited for that first Friday night, but this is a matchup between two great cross-county rivals. The Rockmart Yellow Jackets are taking on Cedartown. The Cedartown Bulldogs are headed to the Rock, actually, and we've got Coach Jamie Abrams of the Cedartown Bulldogs with us. How are you, Coach?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We're great.
Wonderful. Well, let's just go ahead and jump into talking about this matchup. We're going to get started by talking about what this rivalry means and how you handle starting the season with a game of this magnitude. A lot on the line. I know that both teams are really excited about it.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about that the other day. It's, there's no rest right out of the gate. You're getting after it for sure. It's a great high school football atmosphere. My first one was in 2020 when you were limited, because of COVID, and it was still a great atmosphere. And the kids play extremely hard in this game, and it's just one of those. It's a playoff type atmosphere where it means something. And but that's kind of what you coach for and play for and do all those things is for those types of games as well. So, but it's I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not a region game for either of us, but it's just one of those things that it's people that you see all the time and bump into all the time. So it's one of those deals where you don't want to you want to come out on the correct end of that thing.
Well, it doesn't get much closer than it did last year. You scored a 13-12 victory in that game. And, both programs have a proud history, but you and Coach Parsons have really stepped in and put these programs – you guys have built consistent playoff championship caliber squads on the field. So how do you prepare for this Rockmart team, and what does your team have to do to be successful in this game Friday night?
Well, I think, they're extremely big up front, and they got a lot of kids who can run and run really well. So, we got to make sure that we do a good job in dealing with their size and speed. It's always good to have both of those things, and they got both of them. That's the thing. And then, early games, conditioning and dealing with, people being in different spots and all those kind of things. You're always trying to guard against those personnel errors and special teams errors and all those kind of things that sometimes you tend to see early on.
We got Coach Abrams with us, head coach of the Cedartown Bulldogs. And, of course, we know you have a lot of talent returning from last year's team. So who are some of the leaders that you would like to talk about here and how they will need to perform if you're going to bring home a win in a really tough road matchup, as you just pointed out?
Yeah, we got several guys returning that have played a lot as sophomores and juniors. Some of them have started since they were sophomores, so it's not new to them, but they still got to. They understand they still got to go out and perform. Starting up front on the defensive line, Jacoby Diamond, kind of the leader there. He's played a good bit as a sophomore, and then stepped in as a junior. That linebacker, Michael Gibbons, he led us in tackles last year. He started as a sophomore. Outside linebacker Sam Smith started as a sophomore, and then the secondary Tay Harrison and Marcus Gardner, and both been starting since they were sophomores. So lean on those guys being 3-year starters. Then on the offensive side of the ball, Isaiah Johnson has really stepped up into his role on the offensive side of the ball. He was one of our main ball carriers last year. Jewel Davis. We'll play on both. A lot of our kids will play on both sides of the ball, but Jewels was our leading rusher last year. He's back in the backfield. DeMarcus was our leading receiver, flipping over from the offensive side of the ball. And then Ashton Turner is another senior we got that'll play both ways there. Then up front, Anderson Kennard plays center. He's a 2-year starter. Reese Smith and Orlando Lopez are all 2-year starters. And then at tight end, Chris Johnson is playing for us, and he started last year on both sides of the ball as a freshman. So there's plenty of guys that got the playing experience, but you're never going to rest easy in this one. because it doesn't matter what's happened. It's the first game, but it doesn't matter when you're dealing with rivalry games.
Yeah, and to kind of elaborate on that a little bit, with this being the first game of the season, we see it every year. There seem to be a few more procedure penalties and mistakes. Lots of cramping usually happens this time of year. But how do you get the emotions in check from your guys going into a game that is this big? They want to win. Both teams really, really want this game. So how do you manage your team's emotions?
Yeah, that's a tough one there. Just because you can do all the talking about it you want to, but then when they run out on the field, and they moved our game to Thursday last year. It was at our place, and both sides were, there wasn't an empty seat on either side on a Thursday night. So just as a high school kid, when you walk out there to that, it's going to be real hard to keep your emotions in check, honestly. So, try to prepare them the best we can, but at the end of the day, once that stuff wears off, it's just football. So I'm just trying to try to guard against it the best you can, and keep those emotions in check.
Well, Coach, so we got one last question that we're going to ask you as we get ready to wrap up. And we asked your counterpart, Biff Parson, the same question. We hate to put any more pressure on you because I know there's enough pressure going into this matchup. But Ian and I, we're big fans of the Polk County pizza situation that y'all have got between Cedartown and Rockmart. So we got to know, who's got your favorite pie?
Oh, man, favorite pizza. Hey, we eat a lot of Little Caesars around here, actually. But we're ball on the budget, but you definitely got to go with Zorba's in town. They do an outstanding job. We've done our coaches show out there and all that. No, there's no doubt. I don't get to, and I'm sure Coach Parson doesn't get to frequent this side of the county much, so I couldn't even give you a fair assessment because I've never been to the other one.
I gotcha.
Right.
Well, we appreciate you being a sport about that question, and we appreciate your time, of course, and wish you the best of luck in this game and the season, of course.
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's going to put a wrap on our conversation here with Coach Abrams from Cedartown High School as they get ready for a big rivalry matchup. It's going to be a lot of fun, isn't it, Ian?
Absolutely. Going to be a showdown.
We're going to take another break here on This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We'll be back with more after these messages.
Riverside Auto Group is celebrating 50 years in Rome and Northwest Georgia. Join the celebration and shop for your next car, truck, or SUV from Riverside Auto Group. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
Welcome back in, everybody, to this episode, the first of the season, by the way, of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football on WLAQ YouTube channel. We're glad to have you with us, and we're also very excited about a new feature that we've got for the show this year, and that is highlighting a game of the week. And this week, Ian, we really didn't have to look too hard to find which game that we wanted to highlight. A lot of great games this week, but this one has a little extra special, don't you think?
Yeah. When you've got two cross-county rivals going head-to-head like the Rockmart Yellow Jackets and the Cedartown Bulldogs, there is no lack of pageantry and emotion that's going to be on that field, and it's great that we're going to get the insight of both head coaches of these teams. No doubt. And we're going to start with Coach Parson, who's on the line with us for the Rockmart Yellow Jackets. And Coach, how are you today?
Good. Thank you guys for having us on.
We're fired up about it, and so we'll just jump right into the conversation. But the lights, they don't get much brighter than Friday night against your cross-county rival. Give us the temperature of your team heading into this big opening matchup. I know there's a lot of excitement around campus right now.
Yeah, this is going in year 9, and so being able to experience this for 8 years of opening up with your crosstown rival. It's obviously really good for our county, for our two towns. I think our school, our students, everybody excited to kind of first week of the season. You get all these festivities of rivalry week and dress up and burning of the Bulldog and whatever they do to a Yellow Jacket. Just those are fun times, and those are what we talk about to our kids at these games that you get to play in, that you'll end up talking for a lifetime about these memories. And it's definitely, it doesn't get any better than this as far as opening up, and you kick it right off with your county rival, and we're excited to play, no doubt.
Well, Coach, you've built a heck of a program there at Rockmart. Coach Abrams has done the same thing over at Cedartown. I know you're no stranger to what the Bulldogs bring to the table. So talk to me about the keys in this matchup for your team to have success.
Yeah, the number one key is we can't turn the football over. You can't have turnovers. You got to win time of possession, and you got to win in the kicking game, field position. I think in the last several years that we played, Coach Abrams, which he and his staff do a phenomenal job and has done a phenomenal job of with that program and what they've been able to accomplish. So I think it's been, a 1 or 2 touchdown. At 1 point last year, they beat us by a touchdown or 2 the year before, the year they went to the state. I think we got them by a touchdown 2 the year before that. So, it's one of those games where you love to coach in, you love to be a part of. It's going to come down to just the small, minute details of a mistake. And, you practice all week trying to not be on the other side of the coin of doing that, making more mistakes than the other team.
Coach, obviously this is a game that you're going to get at home, and home field advantage is always a great thing to have no matter who you're playing. But when you're playing a rivalry game like this, how much more of a role do you think it plays when you've got a situation like this to get this at your house?
Yeah, no, I think playing at home is obviously a benefit. It's where we practice every day. Kids are familiar with it. But, both sides of the bleachers are going to be packed. And it'll be standing room only. And, the atmosphere will be electric. And, being able to, our kids coming out their own locker room and stuff like that, just the familiarity of things, it plays a small part of it. There's no doubt about that.
Well, Coach, I want to talk a little personnel with you. I know you got a new signal caller under center, but want to know what your expectations are for him and some of the other players we should expect to hear a lot about this season and that'll need to perform well Friday night.
Yeah, so we got a lot of new faces, really. Graduated 22, 24 seniors last year, and a lot of them are playing college ball, and we've playing a lot of just new faces. A lot of guys has been in this program, but they're just new to the Friday Night Lights atmosphere. We're heavy freshman, sophomore team right now. That's just where our numbers are at. So we're going to rely on our seniors, and that's what I think most teams are going to do. And, the experience that some of those guys can bring to the table, and the ones that's been in the fire. As far as our signal caller, he's learning with the new system, and we also got a backup that's been with us who knows the system. So it's right now it's really who's going to have a better week of preparation that we'll kind of roll with. And so we just still in that mode and that of figuring out what our identity is. We hadn't, and that's okay, even though it's, we're kicking off against a rival, and I'm sitting here telling you I don't know what our identity is. Those things don't come till week 4, 5, or 6 sometimes. That's kind of how it unfolded last year for us.
Well, you've never shied away from a tough non-region schedule. That seems to be the trend with most programs now because it's really the season's 2 parts. And last year, you guys took some lumps early and then went on a heck of a run and almost brought home a state championship. So talk about the value of playing these tough matchups as the season goes forward.
Yeah, one thing that we've been able to accomplish here because we've had really good players is we're able to build a culture around here that, when I call for games, they're like, yeah, no, I don't want to play you guys. Or, we're calling the Daltons, the Cass, the Cartersville, the Irwin counties, people that we've been able to play the last 4 or 5 years because that's the only ones we can really get on our schedule. And we're okay with that. I like playing hard teams, and I just my own philosophy, right or wrong or indifferent. I think it builds your character of your team. It puts them through the fire. You start figuring out who's tough and who's not, who can deal with some adversity, who can deal with the outside noise and block it out. It's hard as a teenager in this day and age of there's too many mamas and daddies and aunts and uncles and students that are in your ear talking about how bad you are when you go 1 and 2, but then they're the first one to buy a ticket for the Benz, so it all works out. And, we have a plan and we want to play these tough teams and we want those teams to play us too. So, I'm excited to have Cedartown and Cartersville and Rome on our schedule. Now, obviously we got kicked in the mouth Thursday a little bit with Rome, but they're a really good football team, and we're thin right now. That's okay. We'll figure it out, and we'll have these young pups grow up, and by mid-year we'll be hopefully hitting on the right cylinder.
Well, Coach, as you know, we're part of the media, and part of our job is to stir things up a little bit. So we're going to do that with this next question. I got a feeling, but the Polk County pizza game is particularly strong. Ian and I talk about that all the time. What's your favorite place to grab a pie over there in Polk County?
Oh, wow. Put me on the spot. Probably hurt some feelings myself. It just really depends on the mood you got. Obviously, you got your hometown pizza here in downtown Rockmart, that's really good to us, and they've got good pizza. Marco's is new. They're actually feeding our team on Wednesday with their pizza. Johnny's has always been a huge supporter. They feed our guys pizza, and their pies are really good. And then sometimes you just can't go wrong with the old school Pizza Hut. Sometimes you just need a Pizza Hut pizza. So it really depends on your mood of the week or the day of what you want.
Well, there's no lack of spots. Matt and I can't decide what the best one is in Polk County, so we need some help. We go to the pizza. When we come to Rockmart, we end up at the Pizza Farm just about every time, I think.
Yeah, and I had somebody.
Well, Pizza Farm, I really forget about Pizza Farm because every time I go there, I don't even think about the pizza, even though it's named Pizza Farm, because they got so many options, really good options that I don't even hit the pizza stuff.
Gotcha.
But Pizza Farm is obviously a huge landmark here in Rockmart, and it is really, really good.
That's awesome.
Really good people over there.
Heck yeah. Well, we're glad to get your intel on the pizza game in Polk County. And, we talked to Coach Abrams. He says you guys are buddies, but this week you aren't talking to him.
Yeah, it's like I tell my own boys, y'all can be brothers, but when you go one-on-one, y'all not brothers anymore. You try to beat him. We talk about to our kids, we either win or win. Losing's not an option. Obviously, in this game, that somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose, and then you got to deal with it for a year. That's the bad part of this business, but that's life, and sometimes life throws you curveballs, and you got to deal with stuff like that. It's about how you respond to anything. It's going to make you everything, and that's kind of what we teach our kids about character. win or lose, we want to learn and continue to grow each day and each week, because there's a lot of potential in this young football team. We took some injuries Thursday, that could hurt us, but we also feel like we got some good young players that's ready to step up and have an opportunity to put their name on our team a little bit.
Well, Coach, great comments, and we appreciate you giving us some time today, and best of luck to you this weekend and getting the season going, man. Thank you.
Man, I appreciate you guys calling, and anytime you need to hear from Rockmart Yellow Jackets, please give us a call. We love to brag about our kids and our program and our community.
Thank you for the offer, and we will certainly take you up on that. Right, bye-bye.
Y'all have a blessed day.
You too. And that's been Coach Biff Parson, the head coach of the Rockmart Yellow Jackets. And as we get ready for a big rivalry matchup to kick off the high school football season, man, big weekend coming up, Ian.
Yeah, it's great to get the input from the two guys leading these teams into battle.
We're going to take another break. This is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group. We'll return.
Riverside Auto Group is celebrating 50 years in Rome and Northwest Georgia. Join the celebration and shop for your next car, truck, or SUV from Riverside Auto Group. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
Welcome back to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, coming off of two great interviews with Coach Jamie Abrams of the Cedartown Bulldogs and Coach Biff Parson of the Rockmart Yellow Jackets. We got their insight into our game of the week, Cedartown at Rockmart. Let's get this picked.
Oh, man, this is a tough one to pick. And are you leaving that space so I pick it first? Is that what we're doing?
Bring it on,
here?
man. Bring it on. I'm passing the buck to you, my friend.
Okay. So, talk a little series history here. Going to run through this real quick. Cedartown leads 53-25-2, according to the Georgia High School football historians. The Bulldogs have won the last two in the series. All of the games have been close the last 6 seasons. I think we're going to see more of that here. Rockmart, as Coach Parson talked about in the interview, took some lumps against Rome, but that's what they want. They want to face these tough opponents. Iron sharpens iron. And that's the kind of experience that he's not going to shy away from. But what better way to get your team ready is to test them early, find out what you got, those sort of things, put them under fire. The Yellow Jackets have a lot of young talent on the field. Plus, they've got a quarterback with some experience, a live arm. We've seen him a lot. Luke Parker, he can sling the ball, no question about that. Came over from Darlington. This one could go either way. Cedartown has won the last couple. They should have the numbers, I think, being a bigger school, maybe a little bit more depth. They took it to Troop in a preseason scrimmage earlier in the month. Troop's a program that's had a lot of success in recent years. So I think this one's going to be close. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take the Cedartown Bulldogs. Ian, how do you see this one?
Well spoken there, Matt. Last year's was a thriller, 13-12, came down to a last-second game-winning field goal attempt, just missed, and Cedartown gets the win 13-12. I think this is going to be a defensive slugfest. I think Rockmart is going to make them fight and earn a victory, but at the end of the day, Cedartown was kind of regrouping after their run to a near state championship 2 years ago. Last year, they had these kids who needed experience. They're back. They're experienced. Juels Davis is the guy to watch here. He's their leading rusher from last year. He's back. I like the Bulldogs to get this win on the road, but I expect this to be a fight to the finish.
All right. Here is the final pick of the day, ladies and gentlemen. It's Grayson Atkins. Who you got?
I mean, if College Game Day was a thing, this would certainly be on the slate for that. You have all the things you need in a great rivalry game for this one. It checks all the boxes. I think it's good that they play first game of the season. Cedartown, of course, won the past two. They return, of course, their leading receiver, DeMarcus Gardner, and then they have I believe he was GPB All-State last year, cornerback, and Tay Harris, who is a Clemson commit. So they got a lot of guys coming back. They returned their leading tackler. So yeah, y'all heard me say it earlier. Go Dogs! Give me the Cedartown Bulldogs.
All right, so it's unanimous, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, that's going to put a wrap on this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. One more quick note. I do want to mention that the Almerchi Indians have an open week to start the season. They will open the season next week at Ridgeland, and then the Coosa Eagles also open their season coming up next week at Southeast Whitfield. So I thought I'd throw that out there. But Grayson, fantastic job today, man. You've been a great addition to our panel already. We really enjoyed talking to you today, man.
Thank you. Even if y'all heard me say "Go Dogs" a little bit, like 4 times or so.
For safe measure there, huh?
I had to end it with that one.
Any final comments from you, Ian?
Hey, just looking forward to a great first week and appreciate you all being with us. Remember to smash that subscribe button. We want to bring you more great content, so follow us.
Like and share, all that good stuff. And as Ian pointed out, smash the subscribe button. Well, that puts a wrap on this edition. I definitely want to take one more opportunity to thank our sponsor, Riverside Auto Group. And with that, we're out of here. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you.
This has been another edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. We appreciate you tuning in and invite you to tune in again next week. Please like, share, and subscribe.